Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Shepard. For those of you who are unfamiliar with who I am, I'm the athletic trainer for recreational sports here at VCU, mainly working with sport clubs and intramurals. I also work with VCU Sports Med as well. So I wanted to take this time and opportunity to be able to talk to you a little bit about stretching, the different types of them, because a lot of people, especially now that we are inside during the quarantine, they're trying to be a little bit more active. The problem is that if you are going through an exercise routine and you don't know how to stretch properly, you can actually injure yourselves or make things a lot worse by being very sore the next day. So we're going to talk a little bit about different types of stretching, how to utilize them, which is the best for you, at what time, all of these things, and then we'll be able to answer any questions through the chat window that you may have at this time. So we're going to go through the three different types we're going to talk about today are static stretching, dynamic stretching, and PNF, so proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Huge mouthful, that's why we shorten it to PNF stretching. Some of these might sound a little bit familiar to some of you, or you might want to start incorporating them into your daily exercise routine. If both of those options are awesome, you can definitely learn a little bit during this session. So a little bit about myself before we get diving into things. I have been an athletic trainer for about 5 years now. I have my bachelor's degree in athletic training with a minor in exercise science from Mercyhurst University up in Erie, Pennsylvania. After that, I decided to venture a little bit into the little bit more west, and I went to get my master's degree from SIUE, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, with a master's of science in kinesiology with concentration in exercise and sports psychology. And then I also received my, halfway through my master's degree, I decided to pursue my associate's degree in psychology. And so going through and working with different teams that I have, I've been working with football, hockey, pretty much everything under the bridge. Right now, I'm working with 38, anywhere between 35 and 38 sport clubs. And we wanted to start introducing more stretching into these types of routines because we were noticing that people were getting injured due to either muscle strains or DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, which is you exercise, everything is nice and great, but then the next day you feel like you just can't get off the couch, your body is completely sore and aggravated. And so I wanted to take this time to be able to talk about a few different options that you may have at home. Very, very little equipment is used. I'm going to talk a little bit about some things you can use instead of the equipment that I'm using today, to things you can easily find around the house. So all that you need for this session is pretty much a yoga mat if you have one, or an exercise mat. If you don't even need one. It's just something to protect yourself, especially if you have hardwood floors at home. I also utilize yoga blocks as well as a yoga strap. So I started doing yoga and incorporating it into my students' activities about 2 years ago. And I have seen a dramatic difference between having the yoga incorporated into the routine and not having it. To the point where we are able to fix muscular imbalances, balance, we are able to work with some coordination and some muscular weakness. All of these things we're able to utilize with the yoga programs. And so we might be able to do a session a little bit later on the importance of yoga and exercise. But for today, we're going to stick mainly with stretching, but some of these, especially if you are fluent in yoga, may seem a little bit familiar to you. So the three types of stretching, again, static, dynamic, and PNF stretching. Static stretching is going to be the first one we're going to talk about, and it's the one that I utilize most often with my students. That and PNF stretching with a little bit of dynamic thrown in is my personal recipe for success. Some people may find that they like a little bit more dynamic in their routine, a little bit more PNF. You are more than welcome to absolutely kind of mix, choose which ones you want to utilize. But for this particular session, I'm going to just explain why you should utilize stretching, the different types, and how are they going to benefit you in the long run. And so static stretching is going to be the first one we're going to talk about. Static stretching can be utilized a little bit with dynamic if it's held for a longer period of time. And so with static stretching, the books and the research typically don't really have a set recipe for the amount that you should be holding it. I've seen anywhere from 3 seconds to 60 seconds to 120 seconds. Personally, I've seen anywhere between 30 and 45 seconds as the sweet spot for that number. And so we're going to go a little bit deeper into why static stretching is important. Static stretching is able to allow the body to move through a range of motion that's actually better and safer for the body, because it's not pushing it into a body that is not comfortable with. So in the body, we have something called muscle spindles and GTOs, so Golgi tendon organs. Both of these kind of work together and allow the muscle so that it doesn't completely tear or become uncomfortable. So there are facilitators in the muscles that are able to work with the brain, and they have this routine going that allow the body to stretch and use that flexibility that is going to help them in the long run with stretching. The way we want to use stretching is to achieve plasticity, though. So plasticity is flexibility, but able to actually lengthen the muscle for a longer period of time. And this is important to be able to do because, especially if you have chronic tightness in hamstrings, big muscle groups like the quads, hamstrings, shoulder blades, anything like that, plasticity is an awesome tool to be able to utilize because it's going to give you the most bang for your buck while allowing you to do a safe stretching routine. So static stretching, in this case, static stretching is holding a position for anywhere between 30 and 45 seconds. You can go a little bit longer. I typically don't have students go past 60 seconds though, just because it starts to get a little bit uncomfortable after that, or to be honest, they might get a little bit bored. And so holding that static stretch is a great way to override those GTOs and the muscle spindles. So you're stretching the muscle and you are telling your brain, okay, I'm able to stretch a little bit further at this point. And so with static stretching and dynamic and PNF stretching, I usually tell people to do them anywhere between 3 and 5 different times per session. And it helps the body kind of get a little bit further into the stretch, as well as make it a little bit more flexible in that case. And so with static stretching, you are stretching the muscle spindles, and the GTOs are overriding and they're working with the brain and saying, okay, I can stretch a little bit further at this point. And so you get a little bit further, and eventually you get a little bit further. And whenever you see somebody going through a stretching session, it's interesting because eventually they're able to stretch a lot further than what they first started out in the session, which is great, as well as it's not overwhelming or uncomfortable for the individual. A lot of people try to go into stretching positions and they get very, very uncomfortable or cramp up. And so these are a great way to utilize the stretches without being super uncomfortable. And so static stretches, you're holding it. I tend to do a little bit of static stretching, personal preference, in the beginning of my exercise routine, then move into dynamic, and then finish off my exercise routine, a nice cool down with more static stretching. Static stretching is going to be great because it eventually it will prevent muscle imbalances, it will prevent you from being sore the next day. So that DOMS we talked about, the delayed onset muscle soreness, will be diminished, and it'll be decreased in the amount of times that it'll happen. But it also helps prevent injuries by bringing blood flow to the body just a little bit longer and then slowly tapering it off. Static stretching is a good way to kind of bring blood flow to the muscles to be able to get them introduced a little bit, if you will, dipping your toes in the water and able to getting you into the mindset to be able to do your exercise routine. So that dipping the toes in the water, you don't just jump into the deep end with really, really cold water because the whole body basically doesn't react well to it. So you dip your toes in, get a little bit warmer, and eventually, theoretically, you can jump into the pool and it will not be uncomfortable for your body. So static stretching Pretty much covers that. We're gonna go into a few different types of static stretching here in a little bit. The next type I wanna talk about is dynamic stretching. So dynamic can be misconstrued with static. And so the difference is dynamic is dynamic. It's moving through a range of motion as you're stretching the body. And so a lot of people, specifically in the pro level and the collegiate level, tend to utilize the dynamic stretches a little bit more because they're preparing their bodies for that type of event that they're about to go into. Dynamic stretches should typically really be around 5 to 10 minutes worth of activity and should be the entire body that's utilized with this. It shouldn't be broken into just upper body, just lower body. It should be a full body experience because you want to bring blood flow and a little bit of elasticity to those muscles all over your body, especially if you're preparing for a full body workout. So static stretches, dynamic stretches now. So what we talked about before, personal preference, I like to do a little bit of static followed by dynamic into my exercise routine, whatever that may be for the day, and then follow up with a little bit of static stretching just to make sure my muscles aren't going to be completely sore the next day, but also to prevent myself from injury as well as just not being able to go completely from exercise and then stopping. The next type we're going to talk about is PNF stretching. So it might sound familiar to you. You might have heard it with some advice somewhere along the lines, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper because PNF stretching is very, very diverse, and there's actually 3 different types we're going to talk about today. So the first type is contract relax, and so that's going to be a passive stretch with an isotonic contraction of the muscles as we go through it. And so I'm gonna definitely explain these as we go through them a little bit later, but I wanna give you a little bit of insight on why we utilize these in the first place. The second type is hold relax. And so this is also a passive stretch. So passive just means the person is not activating those muscles as they're going through them. Passive means that somebody or something, so we can use the yoga strap as well as a couple different items around the house, you're pulling the muscle into an area that it's comfortable in, where it's not going to be feeling like the muscle is going to be tearing or anything like that. It's a nice, comfortable stretch, and you're going into an isometric contraction. So isometric versus isotonic. Isometric means you're contracting the muscle, but you're not moving it through a range of motion. And so an easy example is if you put your hands together and you push against them, I'm contracting my muscles in my shoulders and my forearms and my wrists, but I'm not moving through a range of motion. And so that's an isometric contraction. You're getting a little bit of blood flow to the area, but you're not moving it through a range of motion. Isotonic, on the other hand, isotonic is the muscle's contracting, but it's also moving through a range of motion. And so with the contract relax technique, you're moving the body through a range of motion and then going back to the original position. So each of these, I'm going to do a nice simple routine. A lot of people have issues with hamstring tightness. And so we're going to dive deep into how to utilize this with chronic hamstring tightness, or if you just want to stretch your hamstrings because they feel really, really tight. The last type we're going to talk about is slow reversal hold relax. And so the difference between this one and the previous two is this is an active stretch. So the actual individual that is performing the stretches is going to contract their muscles as they're moving through a range of motion. So they're not going to pull it towards them. That muscle isn't going to be completely relaxed. It's actually going to be contracting, and it's going to move through a range of motion. And so with this one that you're going to see is you're going to be contracting your quads, then your hamstrings, your quads, and then your hamstrings. And you're going to slowly be able to see, if you start off here, you're going to go a little bit further until eventually you're in a nice, comfortable position, and those muscles are elongating in a nice, positive manner. And so those are the 3 types of PNF stretching that we're going to go over. Like I said, we're going to do these very hamstring specific today, because I just want to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're going through, but you can utilize these basically over your entire body as long as you understand the different parts that we're going to go through. And if you have any questions or you want to kind of dive deeper into PNF stretching, you're more than welcome to research it out, or you can absolutely contact me. I can help you out a little bit more, especially if you have specific questions with your exercise and stretching routine. Okay, so static, dynamic, and PNF stretching, the three different types that we're gonna go over today. We're gonna do basically an entire body stretching routine, which is very important, I believe. Um, Even if you aren't going to be doing an exercise routine, and with everybody either teleworking or quarantined right now, I think it's very important because you wanna be able to open your body up and basically let it breathe, bring blood flow to your entire body. Even if you aren't going to be doing an exercise routine, stretching can be definitely beneficial for you in the long run because it's not going to make your muscles contract and be very, very tight. It's going to open you up and you're going to feel almost a relieving sensation over your entire body if you have a consistent exercise or stretching routine, or both. Definitely both. So static stretching. I typically do about 30 seconds worth of activity, so 2 sets of 30 seconds, but we're going to show you a little bit of everything. So I'm gonna get my handy dandy timer here, and then I can show you a little bit of stretching. I'm gonna start seated, how I am now, but eventually going to the mat that I have behind me, and then some of it is gonna be down on the floor. Dynamic, we're going to show a little bit standing in a seating position and then maybe a little bit on the floor. PNF, the three types of PNF stretching, we're going to definitely do on the floor. So the two items I have on the floor besides the yoga mat are yoga blocks and the yoga strap. A lot of people tend to ask, do I need to go out and buy a yoga strap? Do I need to? No, absolutely not. If you have things around the house, you can definitely do this with pretty much anything. A t-shirt, I've seen people do it with a pants belt. You can do it with an old hoodie, basically anything that's not elastic. So don't try these with resistance bands because they have that elasticity to them already. They're not gonna hold that position very, very well. And it's not gonna give you the proper stretching that you're gonna require for these types of stretching mechanisms. And so you want something that's a little bit sturdy. So worst comes to worst, grab an old t-shirt. You don't need a yoga strap. If you have one, great. If not, I try to get things around the house that you can utilize anyway. So static stretches, as I'm sitting down here, a lot of people tend to have a lot of tension in their neck, specifically in the back of their neck and the side supporting muscles in their neck. And especially right now, if you're teleworking, the problem is a lot of people are bending forward or looking down at their phone. And so there's a lot of tension in the back of the neck. And it can also disrupt that lordotic curve that you have in the back of your neck. And so if your neck is supposed to be curved like this, having that constant tension on it is eventually going to make it into a neutral or going into a kyphotic curve, almost like you have in your thoracic cavity where it's a little bit curved this way instead of this way. And with that, it makes the neck very, very uncomfortable. So a little bit of stretching I tend to do with people is tucking the chin in towards the chest. And what you're gonna feel is stretching basically on the entire back of your neck, as well as a little bit into your shoulder blades. Because of the muscles that this is stretching, it kind of gives you a nice broad stretch. After tucking the chin in towards the chest, you can look up towards the ceiling as far as what's comfortable. So you don't want to go all the way back, just enough so that the chin is going up towards the ceiling or the sky if you're outside. Either way is perfectly fine. The next one I tend to do is bringing the right ear into the right shoulder, and so dipping down. Now sometimes having this type of stretch may be comfortable for you, but it might feel like you can go a little bit further. And so you don't want to crank your neck down because that'll put a lot of tension on this, the vertebral discs in your spine. But what you can do is you can take your right hand and just apply a little bit of pressure so that you can get a little bit further, but it's not going to put a lot of pressure on the cervical vertebrae. And then the same thing you can do in the left side of your body. Just a little bit of pressure, almost as if you were pushing an envelope closed and you were sealing it up. After that, you can turn the chin towards the left shoulder, and you'll feel that basically on the side of your neck as well as on the sides of your shoulders. And then same thing, but on the right side. Good. So remember, each of these static stretches, you're going to be holding anywhere between 30 seconds, trying to do them 1, if not 2 times. You can do 3 or more, but honestly, you're not going to notice a whole lot of difference after 2 or 3 times. If we wanted to open the shoulders up a little bit more, so sitting at the computer, especially if you're teleworking right now, you're going to notice a lot of tension in the back of your shoulders. And that's because everything is coming forward. The shoulders are rounding forward, and we're kind of hunched over at the computer or television, whatever you're using as a computer monitor now. And so what you want to do is you want to open yourself up with your chest, and it's going to help relieve some of that pressure in the back of your shoulders. And so if I stand up, moving my chair here, what you can do is you can stretch your shoulders a little bit by just having your fingers. And if you don't have a whole lot of shoulder mobility, no problems, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you 2 different options with this one. You can also utilize that yoga strap we talked about earlier. So if we don't have a whole lot of mobility, we can use the yoga strap and just have it behind our backs and just putting a little bit of tension, almost as if you're pulling something apart, almost like Play-Doh, and just pulling apart. It'll open your shoulders up, but it's not going to put a whole lot of pressure on the shoulders. So doing that is option number 1. Option number 2, if we have a little bit of mobility in our shoulders, pretend you're squeezing a beach ball or some kind of object behind you, and make sure the chest is lifted up towards the ceiling. We're not going all the way back, but just a little bit of a lift, and then we're going to be pushing against that imaginary beach ball. Option number 3, if we have a little bit of shoulder mobility and we are comfortable with it, interlace the fingers and just lift up, or you can have it down by your side. Not a problem there. If you want a little bit more of a lift, you can absolutely do that. And that is a great stretch to kind of open yourself up and not make you super, super tight in your chest. The back of your shoulders. So near the back of your shoulders here, sometimes it gets a little bit of tension. You want to stretch them out. All you got to do is wrap your one elbow in towards the other one and just pull it across your body. Now at this one, you don't want to go up. You want to go almost down or horizontal. And it's going to give you a nice stretch in the back of your shoulders. And doing that on both shoulders definitely gets you a nice stretch. Like I said, usually going about 30 seconds with this one. I'm doing a little bit shorter of a static stretch with these ones. The last stretch in the shoulder I want to show you is an adductor stretch. So we're going to be doing adduction, which is bringing the body part closer to the body. And all I'm going to do is if I have my hands behind me, I'm taking my one wrist and I'm just going to pull it a little bit towards my body. So if this is my neutral position, I'm just pulling it towards the body. And that gets a nice stretch in the shoulder as well as in the deltoid muscle. If you wanted to bring it a little bit more into the neck, you can do that stretch that we talked about. So pulling just a little bit and then a little bit of a pull in the neck as well. And that'll get you a nice brachial plexus stretch, which is in the neck. It's a bundle of nerves in there. But it also gets you a nice relieving stretch. I'm going to even myself out here. Good. This is also great, especially if you're looking for a little bit more shoulder mobility. This is a great way to kind of work on that. If we wanted to work on our obliques, doing a nice torso twist is going to be great and beneficial. So the way I typically tell people to do this is putting their arms by their side, almost as if they were teeing it up, and then stretching. If you try to grab onto something and pull it towards you, it does put a lot of pressure in the back. So doing it this way and then placing your hands down, or if you were down on the mat, you can absolutely do that as well. It puts a lot less pressure on the spine, and it makes you actually activate your core a lot more, which is going to help you in the long run, staying nice and up, nice and straight up, and not kind of slouch over. It's going to kind of open your core up just a little bit more by activating it, which is really, really awesome. So doing it to the one side. You can also do this sitting down as well as bringing it to the other side. Hamstring stretches. So hamstring stretches are a dime a dozen. You can do a lot of hamstring stretches. So the one I typically go with is feet a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. And then you're going to hinge at your hips. So that means we're not diving down with our backs. We're actually just going to bend over with our hands and then slowly just letting the arms hang where they may. So if this is a little bit uncomfortable, you can also go against a wall. So if you have a wall, sliding all the way up against that wall so that your legs are up the wall, it puts a lot less pressure on the lumbar spine in that case, and it makes it really back friendly, which is a great way to do it. All right, so the 3 ways we talked about those PNF stretches. Get a little bit deeper down here. There we go. So I'm going to use my yoga strap. You can absolutely utilize whatever you have around the house. Like I said, t-shirt, old hoodie, whatever you got on hand. So these 3, like I said, you can use PNF stretching all over the body, but because the most common complaint I get is hamstring tightness, I'm going to just show you a couple ways with the hamstring that we're going to use today. So contract, relax. Remember what we talked about earlier. We're going to use a passive contraction. So we're not going to contract the muscle. I'm going to show you how to do that in a sec. But we're also going to use an isotonic contraction, which is moving through range of motion, and then we're going to go back. And so usually I have people do this about 3 times. We're going to see how we are with time now. So if I have my object, I'm just going to wrap it around my foot, just like that, on the ball of my foot. And then I'm just going to lay myself back on the ground. So like I said, my muscle isn't contracted right now. So if I drop my hands, my leg is going to go down. So it's just nice and relaxed. A little bit of a micro bend in that knee as well. We don't want to have the knee completely straight. Otherwise, we put a lot of pressure on the back of the hamstrings and the knee. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to wherever I feel comfortable. So with me, I'm super tight right now, so that feels pretty comfortable for me. I'm going to hold that position for about 10 seconds. So I'm about halfway there right now. Good. So after my 10 seconds are done, I'm going to push into my strap, and then I'm going to lower my leg all the way down to the ground. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to lower myself down to the ground. Good. So I'm contracting that muscle. If I want to, I can lengthen my strap a little bit as well. And then I'm going to passively, so bringing the leg back into me. So you see how I can go a little bit further now. And that's a great way to kind of stretch out your leg without putting a whole lot of pressure on it. So I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to lengthen my strap just a little bit so that way I don't have to sit up with it. All right, so I'm pulling my leg towards me. Good, holding it for about 10 seconds or so, and then utilizing that isotonic contraction. So I'm going to push my strap all the way down to the floor, holding it for 10 seconds or so. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then slowly bringing my leg back towards me, getting a little bit more of a stretch out of that muscle. The next one we're going to do, I'm going to use my other leg for this one, is going to be the hold relax technique. So very similar to the first technique, the contract relax technique, except this one is a passive stretch. So we're definitely bringing the leg towards us without contracting that hamstring muscle or the quads. But we are going to use an isometric contraction. So we're not going to move the body through range of motion. We're just going to push against the yoga strap as we're pulling it with our upper body. So same thing, I'm going to bring my leg up towards me. Good, so no muscles contracted in this case. So like I said, I'm a little bit tight right now, so that's as far as I can go that's comfortable. I'm going to hold this for about 10 seconds. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push my heel into, well, for me it's a wall right now, but basically pushing the heel in away from the body. So I'm going to push, and you see how the muscle is contracting right now. My muscle is contracting down here, but I'm not moving it through a range of motion. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good, and relax. So you see how I can get a little bit further now. And so I'm going to hold this 10 seconds. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'm going to contract that muscle. So contracting, hamstring is activated at this point. So if I'm pushing in, I feel that muscle contracting. Good, 9 and 10, good. See, I can get a little bit further at this point. You're not gonna notice an entire difference. You're not gonna get 90 plus degrees of range of motion with this one, but you're gonna get a little bit at a time, which is gonna be awesome. The last one I'm gonna show you, the slow reversal hold relax, is going to be that active technique. So with this one, I'm still gonna utilize the yoga strap, but I'm gonna use it in a different way. So we're gonna go through that one. So with this one, I'm going to actively, so the strap is nice and loose at this point. I'm not using it to pull the muscle up towards the body. So nice and relaxed with the yoga strap at this point. I'm gonna hold wherever feels comfortable. So right there feels about comfortable with this leg. And so like I said, I'm not even using the yoga strap at this point. So I'm gonna hold this position about 10 seconds. 9, 10, good. And then I'm gonna push against the body. So it's a nice isometric contraction. And then I'm gonna pull with my quads. So my quads are pulling it close to my body, nice and loose with the yoga strap at this point. 9, 10, now I'm gonna push, isometric contraction, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I'm gonna pull with my quad. And so this one is a nice combination basically of the hold relax and the contract relax technique, where you are doing an isometric contraction, but you're using the antagonist and the agonist muscle together. So agonist is gonna be the hamstrings in this case, is the muscle that's being stretched. The antagonist is the muscle on the other side of the body, so the quads in this case. So that one, contracting the quads up to the body, and you're going to be using that antagonist muscle, so pulling it in a nice active way, so not passive at that point, which makes it a little bit different from the other types of PNF techniques because it utilizes the passive and not the active, versus the last one, the slow reversal hold relax technique, uses an active technique where you're bringing the leg towards the body and you're not pulling it with that yoga strap. Either way is perfectly fine. The PNF stretches, I tend to do those about 3 times. Same thing with the static stretches, about 2 or 3 times with those. And dynamic stretches, so while we are down here, I can show you one thing of static stretches real quick. If I have my yoga blocks here, I can definitely use those. If you don't have yoga blocks at home, don't worry. If you need something to bring it up towards you a little bit, you can use a stack of books. Anything you pretty much have on hand is gonna work in this case. And so I'm gonna raise the camera up just a little bit so you can see me. Perfect. So if I wanted to do a dynamic stretch to stretch out my hamstrings and my quads, I can do something that I learned with my yoga program. And so I'm gonna have a kneeling lunge to start off with. And I'm going to deep dive into that lunge. So at this point, I feel a stretch in my left hip flexor. And I'm just using my yoga blocks as means so that if I wanted to, I could go down into the floor. But this way, it keeps my spine a little bit more in alignment. So doing that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rock from that lunge stretch back. I'm going to straighten my right knee at this point, and I'm still going to have my hands on that yoga block. And so what this is going to do is it's going to provide a stretch to the hip flexor, then the hamstrings. And then you're just going back and forth. And if you want to, you can be sitting up with this one. You can go down towards the floor. With dynamic and static stretches, the best part about them is that you can pretty much be creative however you want with these ones, as long as you're feeling a stretch in the proper place. So if you're trying to stretch your hamstrings, but you feel a stretch more in your calf muscle, definitely adjust and see which type of stretching you feel in particular parts of your body. I also encourage people to find several different techniques on how to stretch. So everybody thinks that there's only one way how to stretch their body. Not necessarily. There's different ways in which you can stretch that are going to give you the best benefit for you. So something that I feel an amazing stretch in this part of my body, the person next to me might not feel that stretch. They might need a different technique. And so playing around with different ways and how to stretch your body is going to allow you to get the most bang for your buck as you're going through your stretching routine. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me in this session today. If you have questions, comments, concerns, as well as different ideas, I'm always looking for new things that I can do with people. I definitely welcome those ideas. You can email me directly at aball, so aball, the number 4, at vcu.edu. You can also just have a direct link if you go on the VCU Rec Sports page. I have a direct link on the athletic training program page. You can go on there and just click on it directly. I welcome you to join me in my other sessions. So next week we're going to be doing a foam rolling session in my office. After that, we're going to be utilizing the flight of stairs I have in my house, and I'm going to show you some different ways to play around on the staircase, get you a little bit more different of an exercise routine. So thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great rest of your day.